I'm Carol Hoffman. I'm Associate Provost and Director of Work+Life here at Columbia, and we're co-sponsoring today's event with the business school. I'd like to give you a little bit of background about Cali Yost, but initially I just want to make sure you all got brochures, see all of the various programs and services available to faculty, staff, and students here at Columbia. And feel free to take extra brochures, extra flyers about workshops that you can go ahead and distribute to others of your colleagues. So Cali Williams Yost has her MBA from here, the business school at Columbia, and is CEO and founder of Flex Strategy Group and Work+Life Fit, Inc. You can see it on the screen. And she is a research and consulting firm dedicated to making organizations more flexible and empowering individuals to strategically manage the way work fits into their lives. She's the author of a critically acclaimed book called Work+Life, Finding the Fit That's Right for You, and we're selling copies in the back, or the bookstore is selling copies, and Cali would be happy to sign the copies after the presentation. It's the first Work+Life Fit handbook for individuals. Cali also is the creator of the Work+Life Fit blog, which was voted one of the top 100 sites for women by Forbes.com in 2010 and 2011. She's actually been spending the last many months writing a new book, which hopefully will be out in January of this next year. So we all look forward to seeing what that's going to be. For more than 15 years, her firm has created a broad range of organizational and personal flexibility strategies that have become an imperative for global business success. We're particularly, not unlike the Barnard graduation, we almost didn't get Cali because the White House has called her for a meeting tomorrow. So she'll be there meeting with Valerie Jarrett and others on a conference on women economic development. So we're very lucky for that timing and wishing her well at that conference.
It is wonderful to be here with all of you today. I love being back in URIS. And I want you to join me back in 1993. Now, Bill Clinton's our president. Jurassic Park was the top movie of the year. Cheers just ended its 11-year run. And I showed up as an enthusiastic first year at Columbia Business School. So when we first all get here, we tend to share this one conversation, which is, hey, what are you going to do after business school? What do you want this whole MBA gig to get you? And most people say, I want to be in investment banking. I'd like to be a brand manager. I want to be a management consultant. There were a few entrepreneurs sprinkled in there. And then there was me. Okay? I walked the halls saying the following. I'd like to be a work-life strategy consultant. Okay, now let's remember, this is before there was email. This is before there was mobile phones. This is before there was the internet in your house and in your job. So you can kind of imagine why the response to that topic, that answer that I gave, was stunned silence, mostly. And then you also had the one brave executive in residence who actually sat me down and said, you know that isn't actually a job, right? For some reason, I had a vision that we were going to need new, modern, more flexible ways of working. And I'm actually honored because I walked into business school wanting to work at one of two places that actually did this work in the whole United States. I mean, seriously, there were two jobs that I was going for. And colleagues here from Families and Work Institute are here today, and that's where I ultimately got the job, as I ended up working for them. But walking in the door in 1993, did no soul, just knew I wanted to do this work. So the good news is, fast forward 20 years, I wasn't insane, okay? Clearly, we did need new, modern, more flexible ways of working. And I've worked with hundreds of organizations and tens of thousands of individuals since then. But I will say, we still struggle with what flexibility is. We know telework. We're not sort of completely baffled when somebody says flexible hours and work life. But we still don't fundamentally know the answers to a few key questions. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to touch on these 4 questions. The first is, what is exactly work-life flexibility? Now, just so you know, the definitions have evolved over the years, and it's continuing to evolve, but I'm going to explain to you how I define it before we begin. Then, why is it important? You know, we kind of know it's important. And how many of you here are managers? Manage people, okay? Like, you kind of know you should offer flexibility, but you sort of aren't sure why, and you're not even really sure you want to deal with it. So why is it important? Who's in charge? Like, who is in charge of flexibility? Who's supposed to take the lead, make it happen? And then finally, how do you do it? So again, we only have about 40 minutes, and I'd like to leave a few minutes for Q&A, but we're going to hit each one of these before you leave. So let's begin with, what is work-life flexibility? So sometimes it's easier to define something by what it is not. So let's start with that. First, it is not work-focused only. We hear a lot about work flexibility or even workplace flexibility, but the truth of the matter is, if there's flexibility happening in work, there's got to be a corresponding flexibility happening in life. We have to start looking at this whole thing as a whole. We have to stop separating these two because they are not separate. They are the same today. So it is not just work flexibility, it is the whole picture of work and life. Oops, I'm doing the wrong button, sorry. Now, historically, when flexibility started in organizations, it started as formal flexible work arrangements. You had a certain set type of arrangement you could have. You could have a telework arrangement. You could have a part-time arrangement. You could have a flexible hours arrangement. But that's really not what it is, okay? And I'm going to get to that in a minute. It is not a one-size-fits-all FWA. It is not a benefit. It benefits you, but it's not a benefit. It's not like your health insurance or your vacation time that you check a box. That is not what it is. Why is it not going? Huh. Sorry, guys. Let's try this. It is not a program. A program would be like somebody comes in and speaks, or, we have an exercise program. Okay, it's not a program. That is not flexibility. It is not just for women. And the guys in the audience, can I hear a hallelujah on that? Because I got to tell you, guys are pretty tired of having all the ladies just get to talk about flexibility, because guess what? Guys have a life too, and it's really important for them to be able to manage it. But unfortunately, when we started all this, it somehow got associated just with women, and specifically women with children. And that is not what it is. So what is it? It is work-life flexibility. So you got to look at it as a whole. And that's why the plus sign's there. People always ask me, is that a branding strategy? It's like, I wish I was that smart. I'm really not. It really is to let you see that we have to stop separating the two. Second, it's a strategy. It is a strategy. It is a way of operating your business, and it is a way of managing your life. That's why it's not a benefit, and that's why it's not a program. It is a strategy. It is also day-to-day flexibility. We focus so much on formal, flexible work arrangements when really we miss really the big picture, which is that all of us all the time today need to manage our work-life fit day-to-day. We need that sort of tweaking flexibility around the edges that let us come in a little later, leave a little earlier, maybe take a little longer lunch, maybe, right? That's what all of us need today, and that's flexibility. And then there is formal flexibility. For sure, there are times when we need a formal change in how, when, and where we work. That is completely appropriate and important, but it's not a box that you check, because some people don't necessarily just want to telework. They want kind of a telework flex-a-hour formal arrangement, right? And it's defined by what their job is. It doesn't fit neatly into a formal box. So it's about a process that allows you to craft that formal flexibility to the type of work that you have and the life goals that you are setting, okay? And it is for everyone. It is for everybody today in our modern, hectic world. We all need it. And it's also for every business. And we're going to talk about that. So that's what flexibility is. Now, why is it important? Okay, I'm going to put a visual up that is going to break every single rule of presentation. And I know that, okay? You're like, doesn't she know presentation skills? You do not put them, okay, I do. However, and I'm going to go over all of this in a minute, but I want you to just look at the visual here. That's the purpose of this. This is all the good stuff. This is all the great things that happen when you do flexibility. Holy Moses. Like if there was something that was this great, it would be international law, okay? That's how many good things come out of it. Now we're going to go over each one of these individually, but the why is that, okay? And the first piece of the why is the individual and their work-life fit. This is where we go first, and that's cool because we do need it. Now I want to point something out. There's no B word up here. I have not used the B word or the balance word up here. There is no balance. If you leave here with two things today, I hope you leave with the solid why, because even if you're an individual that wants to make the case, the why is going to help you make the case, right? If you're a manager, the why is going to help you make the effort to try to figure out how to make this work. But the second thing is, stop using the word balance. There is no balance. There's only the fit between your unique work and personal circumstances at a particular time. And balance is the thing you will never get. You will always feel frustrated. You will always feel bad. And quite frankly, there's no answer. All of us are so different. Nobody's doing this. Nobody's doing it the right way. It's just what the fit that works for you. So we have work-life fit for everybody day to day. Obviously, parents, elder care providers, millennials, which we'll get to in a minute, and pre-retirees. So this is a great benefit, but that same flexibility in how, when, and where work is done that's helping you achieve this, at the very, very same time, is doing all this for the organization. That's pretty amazing, right? So what are those benefits to the organization? First, working better and smarter. Increasing employee engagement, improving productivity, increasing innovation, and making workflow and communication efficient. I have been doing this work now for almost 2 decades. Wow, that is scary. And I can tell you this, one of my favorite things to do is when I go into a company, I create a bucket of engagement metrics, okay? And I go out, survey the organization, and then I cross-tabulate and compare the people who said they had flexibility versus the people who did not on those engagement metrics. Always, always, the people with flexibility are reporting higher levels of engagement than the people who do not. I've never not seen that happen. It has happened everywhere I've done it. Different industries, it is always the same. And there is plenty of other amazing data out there that shows the increase in productivity and engagement. Now, innovation, this is a really interesting one that I think we miss. So you implement flexibility, what happens? All of a sudden you start asking questions, right? So why are we having that meeting? Or so why do we do it that way? Why are you asking those questions you're not asking those questions otherwise. So all of a sudden what happens is you start to think about work in a more efficient, effective way. You start becoming more innovative about how you are communicating and getting work done. Which brings me to the next piece, making workflow and communication efficient. Back in the day, back in the 1975 model of work, where we all had to go into the office and sit down and shut the door and pull out our typewriter and the whole, right? You knew people were working, you thought, because they were in the office. You didn't really have to communicate with each other all that much because you knew if you needed somebody, they were right there and you could talk to them. But now that's not the case. So we have to be much more deliberate and thoughtful about our communication and the way we task work. And there's nothing bad about that. It forces a level of efficiency and effectiveness that is not there otherwise. So again, a benefit of flexibility to the organization. Containing and reducing costs. Okay, so the downturn happened. Beautiful thing in some organizations that I worked with. They decided to use flexibility so that they could keep people. They asked people, who wants to reduce their hours? So by people volunteering to take a reduced hours schedule, they were able to save money and keep people on. And they're happy now because they didn't have to let them go. Real estate costs. This may be potentially getting a little overblown. So when I'm telling you this benefit, I think maybe companies are taking this a little too far perhaps, but this is especially true for entrepreneurs. Like if you're starting out a business, this can kind of help you not take on office space before you have to. You use flexibility so that you don't have to take on the overhead of office space. Or you have an organization, combination of people being in the office and teleworking, you don't have to take on as much real estate. Healthcare costs. This is a biggie. It's very intuitive, but it's important. You give people the day-to-day flexibility to get to the gym, to eat a healthy meal, to sleep, all the things they need to do to take care of themselves, they aren't going to be as sick, which makes you have to pay less money into your organization. And right now, we all know people are reporting very high levels of stress. And if organizations were to promote more day-to-day flexibility to take care of those things, I think they would see the benefit in reducing healthcare costs almost immediately. And then there's safety, this is technological investments. I've had CIOs tell me that flexibility is great, a strategic approach to flexibility, because what it does is it puts a context around the technology they already have. Does that make sense? Like, a lot of CIOs will say, I have all this great technology we've given people, they don't know how to use it, they're not really taking it to the ultimate place you could go, but when you show them how you use it to manage their work-life fit flexibly, all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't realize that program or that technology we have could help me. So you're using technology to its fullest. And operating costs. This is in organizations where what they've done is they were able to shut down parts of their buildings for periods of time and save that. But again, another benefit. Okay, I'm going to exhaust you on benefits. I'm going to have you totally into the why by the time you go. Okay, building a sustainable workforce. Guess what? Study after study after study after study says people will take less money if they have flexibility. They really will. They love it. It is so valuable to them. And in a world where there isn't as much cash to give everybody, it's something to think about. It really is, in terms of what people value. Attracting people. We're going to get back to the millennials now. They are not working for you. Anybody under 30 who you say, hey, come and work with us, and we're going to make you sit at a desk at the same time every day that you have to come in, they are just not going to get it. They don't. And I always say, if I got everybody, my corporate clients, under the age of 30 in a room, they're going to say this to me. Why am I doing this? This is crazy. Like, they don't want to say it out loud, because every time they do, somebody says to them, you obviously don't want to work hard. They're like, why is that interpreted that I don't want to work hard? I just don't know why we're working like this. But ultimately, they will not stick around and they will not work for you. That goes to retaining people. Good people are very bad to lose. And there are many reasons people are going to need flexibility, but if you can offer that, you will keep people. I know plenty of people who have turned down job offers that do not offer flexibility and stay where they are, even for more money. So it's a way to keep people. You want to develop your leaders, increase diversity in your organization. You know, again, we've talked about this. How do we keep the pipeline looking diverse and maintaining a network? This is a great, great, great benefit to the business. Cornell, I love this. They have a whole group of retirees that they have kept connected to the organization who are on call to cover for people who are on vacation, or they're on medical leave. And it helps the retiree, because they like to come in and make some extra money, and it's somebody who knows the job. It's amazing. But they're very organized about it, and they have it as part of a strategic approach to flexibility. Now, engaging customers and teams. We talked about retaining staff. What I want to talk about is global client coverage. I believe this is one of the next big applications of flexibility. I don't think we've quite figured out yet that too many people in too many organizations are now working almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because of the global nature of the businesses, but also just how technology has changed the expectation of connecting. We have to be so much more deliberate about that. And there have been some organizations that have done a very nice job of having coverage schedules put in place. So they sit down with a team. The team assigns different days you're going to cover, times. So not everybody's working all the time. But unfortunately, I think we realize yet that that's what we need to do. So we're all just working 24/7. But that's another application. And finally, improving environmental sustainability and boosting business continuity. Tons of research, tons around the benefits of having people telework and the benefits to the environment of getting people off the road. The second piece is business continuity. Snowstorm, why be out of work? Why have your company shut? That makes no sense. But you cannot wait to implement that until the day that it snows. Like, that's what happens. Oh gosh, well, we should have telework. It's like, well, you kind of have to put that in place before the actual snow day. So again, these are all the benefits. This is the why. So when managers kind of feel like, well, do I do this just because it's the right thing to do, or Carol Hoffman's telling me to do it, or, I'm not really sure why I should be doing this, that's why. It benefits you as the manager, as the person running this organization, as an individual. This is your business case when you go in to present your plan. Focus on all the good stuff that the business is going to get out of it beyond just your work-life fit. Okay? Now we're going to move to the more macro why. Okay, so that was kind of the more micro why, but I think this is the piece that we have to have a bigger conversation about. Remember when I told you it's 1993, and I'm all excited about this, but there was no email, there was no internet, there was no mobile phone? Guess what? Now there is email, there is mobile phones, and there is the internet, and it has changed everything. So if you are a manager and you say to yourself in the back of your mind, you know what, I didn't kind of need this flexibility when I was starting out, and I really was good, I was fine. That's almost like saying, back when I lived on another planet, and I had a different life. I mean, it literally is that different now. The world of work and life has radically transformed over the last 20 years, and I don't even think we don't even know. That's how fast and how overwhelming it has been. Secondly, most people with children work. Most men, most women with children have jobs. And then there are the millennials. As I said, you have to have flexibility in your workplace for them to work for you. Then there's elder care. How many people have experienced elder care here? Okay. Am I wrong in saying that it's one of the most difficult things you probably have ever experienced? And the tsunami wave of older people who are going to require care from men and women, I believe, is going to overwhelm most organizations in the coming years. Nobody's prepared for it. Another reason why, on a macro level, when you add it to all the other factors, the workplace is changing. And then finally, we do have the aging baby boomer population who either doesn't want to retire or can't retire but doesn't want to work the same way. So oftentimes we look at all these things in isolation. We talk about them as sort of separate things, but together, again, radical change in how, when, and where we work. So that's the why, the macro why of flexibility, along with those sort of more micro impacts into the organization. Okay, so who's in charge of this thing, right? Now, I'm going to give you a bunch of options, and I want you to listen to them, and then I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, okay? Who is in charge of flexibility? Is it Carol Hoffman? Is she in charge of flexibility? Is HR in charge of flexibility? Is your manager in charge of flexibility? Are you in charge of flexibility? Or all of the above? Okay? So I'm going to ask, raise your hand. Who is in charge of flexibility? Carol Hoffman, is she in charge of flexibility? Is HR in charge of flexibility? Is your manager in charge of flexibility? Ooh, I think this is a smart group. Okay. Are you in charge of flexibility? Okay. All of the above. Okay, you guys are so smart because it's Columbia. You guys know that. Okay, who is in charge of flexibility? It's partnership. And it's the individual, and it would be Carol Hoffman, HR, and your manager as the organization. I threw a little public policy in there because there are some public policy aspects to it, which we don't need to get into. But the point is, we have to work together. So what does that look like in action? How do you do it? Well, First and foremost, everybody, manager, individual, HR, should go to the Columbia Work-Life resources and check it out. I am consistently surprised, and that's my nice, friendly way of saying, surprised by how nobody in their organizations refers to their work-life resources and don't know that they're there. So I urge you all to check it out. I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised and take advantage of what Columbia is offering you as a student, as a professional in the organization. Then what do you do as an individual? How do you make this work? Now, this could be its own 3-hour workshop, but I'm going to give you some high level, and then you can ask me more questions in the Q&A. First, you have to use the day-to-day flexibility that you may have, and we just did a national study, and 65% of the full-time working adults in the United States said they did have some flexibility day to day. So if you're in that 65%, you literally have to use it. You have to think about how to thoughtfully and deliberately use that flexibility around the margins that you have to find your everyday work-life fit that you need. We've also done other studies that show that we don't do that. Most people do not take the steps they need to take. And so if that's you, maybe start thinking about how you can more deliberately and thoughtfully use that everyday flexibility. Now, formal flexibility. How do you proceed? First, go to the resources, because there are some policies and procedures on the resources that will help you out. And I would review them. I would talk to Carol if she has any questions. But then what you need to do is you have to create a plan. You cannot walk into your manager's office and say, I'd like to telework for two days a week. Manager's thinking, what does that even mean? Does that mean you're what? How are we getting the job done? You know, what does that mean in terms of how we're tasking? They're like, if you do that, of course the conversation's not going to go well. But if you have sat down and you've thought about a plan beforehand, and one that doesn't just think about your work realities, how you're going to get your job done, how you're going to communicate, what does it mean for your benefits, and how you expect to be paid, and how you expect your career progression to continue, but also your personal realities. You have to look at, can you afford whatever it is you want to do? Do you have the space in your house to telework appropriately? Do you have the right amount of childcare or elder care? All those things have got to be worked out in tandem in a complete plan. Now, this is where I'll tell you about the book that's in the back. People will say, well, how do I do that? Okay, that's the book. The book walks you through how to do that. And it all begins with a simple question that we do not ask ourselves. What do I want? What do I want? People could sit and talk to me for 4 hours straight about what they don't want. That could go on and on and on. But then when you say to them, well, what do you want? A little harder to answer that question. But I'll say if you take some time to answer it, you might actually find you don't want as much as you think you do, is my experience. And what you do want is actually pretty reasonable and probably very easy to put in place, but you need a plan. Then you want to focus on the how and not the why. Okay. You want to make your plan about how you're going to get your work done and not about why you want flexibility, because you want the conversation to be based on an objective discussion about your job. What happens when you walk into your manager's office and you say, I need to telework 2 days a week because my parent is sick? What's that manager going to say? Okay, right? But if you walk in and say, I have a proposal, I'd like to work from home 2 days a week, here's how my job's going to get done, you can have a much more objective, thoughtful conversation that will result in a plan that's going to be a win-win for both of you, that somebody didn't just say yes to because they feel bad, and then you get it in place, it's not working, everybody feels bad. But we want to go to the why oftentimes a lot faster than we probably should, and we should keep it more about the how. Negotiate so there's a win-win. What that means is if you go in with your plan, be open that you may have a little give and take, because you want to make sure that your manager and your team are comfortable with what you're doing. So don't be defeated if the first response is, well, I don't know. There are a couple things. Look at it as the opening of a conversation so you ultimately get to a solution that's a win for everybody and ultimately more likely to succeed. Communicate, 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 communicate. Key. This is really what this all comes down to. And what this means is you're working from home. Whose job is it to be in charge of communication? Yours. You must take that on. You must be the one to initiate. And also on the other side with managers. Managers have to be a lot more deliberate around how they're communicating expectations, goals, what's happening in the office. If a project comes in, they can't just walk out of their office and hand it to the first person. They may have to make a call, or they may have to email saying, hey, we got this project, can you handle it? But we have to communicate. That also means, and I wrote this blog post for Fast Company, they got a ton of hits. Like, people just it was in the Globe and Mail. I mean, I was like, wow, I didn't really think this was such a big deal. But obviously it hit a chord. We have to communicate around our assumptions about what our managers expect from us in terms of our availability. Because the blog post really was that we tend to operate on a lot of assumptions that are not true. Like, well, if my manager sends an email at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, I better stop what I'm doing and respond. Really? Did you sit down? Did you talk about that? Because something tells me he or she might actually just have an extra free moment that they've decided to do some emailing on and maybe don't require you to respond at all. But we don't ask. So this is a true story. This came up because I was in a company and this manager, this guy, he's like, oh, it is so great. I ride a bus in from Long Island and I get the 5 o'clock bus, and I'm on my email the whole way in. I just get that all finished. By the time I'm into the office, I'm good. Everybody's gotten back to me. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, everybody's gotten back to you? It's 5 o'clock. That's early. I'm like, all right, that's amazing that the team all is up that early. So I get to meet with his team, right? It's a nightmare. We're up setting alarms at 5 o'clock in the morning to get his emails. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This is a different picture than he's painting for me, okay? And I said to him, I'm wondering if maybe they don't actually all want to get up at 5 o'clock. Oh, no, they're good with it. Because I said, wait, why don't you ask them? I'm saying, just in the next meeting, just say, hey, how's that whole 5 o'clock in the morning emailing thing going for you, okay? And they were petrified because I said, say something to him. Like, he's going to think we don't want to work hard. No, we have to look. Okay. So he calls me. He says, oh, my gosh. I asked them. He said, they were setting alarms. I'm like, no, I just happened to be on the bus at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's why I send emails. And the assumption is, on his part, that they get it. Oh, they know. They don't. Okay? They don't. And it's incumbent on you as an individual, if your manager is not starting that conversation, to maybe start it and say, hey, you know what, I'm okay. If it's got to be 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm all there. It's good. Just touching base about that, though. Is it something you require? I'm going to tell you, 90% of the time it's not. And the same goes with vacation. That's my other favorite. Oh, well, I can't take a vacation because I'm expected to be, really? Did you sit down with everybody beforehand and say, hey, I'm on vacation, and you know what? I'd love to not actually be on email, so what's the expectation? I have a feeling you're probably going to be told you don't have to be on email unless I call you and it's a very important thing. But again, we don't communicate. Back in the day when we all walked into the office together, and see, some of you are so young, you don't even realize there was a time where you actually had to work really hard to connect to vacation. Like, there were pink slips of paper that people wrote your messages on, and you had to actually get the paper, and then you had to call somebody. Okay, back when we used to have to do that, you didn't have to be as clear in your communications with each other. But now we do. So communicate. And finally, review and revise regularly. What scares managers to death is that once they say yes to something, it's forever. Like, it's written in stone, they never can change it. We have to know that things change, right? Like, we live in a world where change is just like happening at a nanosecond. So you put something in place, 6 months from now, it really might have to change on some, minor way if it's not working. And if you're a manager, it's good to know that people all get it, that we're going to sit down on a pre-prescribed basis to just make sure we're all good. So review it, revise it as you go, and that should be successful. Okay? Now, what do leaders do? Well, first, my hope, if you are a leader in this room, is that the discussion of the why begins to show you that flexibility is a tool in your toolkit. So in other words, if your problem is, I need to motivate people and engage them, think about how flexibility, being a little more flexible, might help you do that. Hey, you know what? Last year there was a big snowstorm. We had a big project, couldn't get done. That was kind of stupid. Okay, maybe we can figure out how to have telework in place so that we can stay up and running next time. Whatever your problem is, I'm losing people, I can't keep good people, whatever it is, it's a tool in your toolkit, it is a strategy. It is not an annoying benefit that, you're feeling pressure to put in place. And, see it as something that can help you. Second, support the ongoing conversations in your organization. People watch you like a hawk. They watch you. So if you are in any way criticizing somebody who might have decided to leave a little early one day to go to their kid's soccer game, that does not support the ongoing conversation of work and life in your team. But what does is just being open yourself. Like, hey, you know what? It's not, I'm going to leave a little early today. Got to head out, but I'm good. Here's how you can reach me if you need me. You don't have to get into why, but just say, this is what I'm doing. Encourage other people. Say to somebody who's got some flexibility, hey, great, worked out great when you were not here yesterday, or you work from home, that's terrific. Support the conversation in your groups, the ongoing dialogue. And get training for you and your people. Guess what? This is a skill set. It actually is a modern skill set. Knowing how to flexibly manage your own work-life fit, but then as a manager, knowing how to use flexibility in a tool in your business. It's a skill set. You're not expected to have this. You know what? Most of us did not hop on a bike at 5 and just speed away on our two-wheelers. We didn't, okay? We needed some help. We needed some training wheels. We needed a few lessons in there. That's exactly what it is with this. So when Carol has a training or you see something where you can get some more information, take advantage of it. Learn from it. Do you have a colleague who's really good at this? Sit down with them. Ask them how they do it. Get the skills. Then, how do you do flexibility? For informal flexibility, how you support it is you manage to the outcome you're looking for, not to the person sitting in the office. These are serious stories. There are people who laugh at my corporate clients, will say, you know what? I'm playing bridge all day long I'm not, that person should not be sitting there. They should be doing something else. They're not working for you. If you think people sitting in their offices are working today all the time, they're not. So manage to the outcome you want them to achieve. Don't manage to how they're doing it. But that requires more communication. It requires you being clearer about your goals. It requires all that stuff. But once you do it, it helps the day-to-day flexibility work. Now, formal flexibility. Again, read the resources that Columbia offers. As a leader, you really should know, because you probably have a lot of support there that can help you. And I know Carol would be more than happy to sit down with you. Now, with formal flexibility, just having the conversation does not guarantee you're going to say yes. And I think that needs to be understood in your team. You don't have to feel pressure that if somebody gives you a plan, and by the way, you're not having a conversation if somebody's not coming to you with a plan. The thought that any kind of manager can come up with any answer for any person that works for them is complete fantasy. You do not know their jobs, and you probably don't even know their lives. So how can you as a manager come up with the answer for them? You can discuss a plan, and there's no guarantee that you're going to say yes for just having a conversation. You also focus on the how and not the why. Managers seem to like to do this, which I think you need to break yourselves of this. I want to know why, because I want to have an idea of whether it's valid. So don't do that, okay? Because if somebody's coming to you with a plan, it is valid for them. And you don't want to be in the position as like judging the validity of somebody's need. Whoa, don't do that, okay? Because chances are you're going to bum somebody out a lot. Just focus on the how and not the why. Negotiate so there's a win-win. Again, if you're not happy with what somebody presented to you, it's okay for you to say, here are my concerns, let's try to work it out. I urge you to have your default not to just be a no, we're not doing it, nope. Try to work it through. Try to come up with something that would be agreeable for you to try for at least a trial period. And again, establish clear goals. I think we all have to admit that sometimes managers don't always establish the clearest of goals, and that's something that in today's flexible modern world, we really have to do. And finally, second to finally, because communicate we've gone over. Okay, managers love this, but they abused flexibility. The person abused it. It was abuse, they didn't do, okay, I'm gonna say 9 times out of 10, the person who abused the flexibility, probably a performance problem beyond the flexibility. And somebody who's a performance problem should not necessarily be given extra flexibility to do their performance probbing with. Deal with the performance problem. Do not make it a flexibility problem, because typically it is not what it is. That's not the problem, is the flexibility. And finally, again, communicate. Just, have the open dialogue with people. Give them the skills they need, set the goals, ask people to test their assumptions with you, because we're all busy. That's the bottom line. We are just busy, busy folks. And you may not even know. I've had managers weep almost in their offices saying, I wish I'd known. I had no idea. By the time I figured out something was wrong, like they were out the door, I couldn't offer them anything that would get them to stay. And I'm thinking, oh, I wish you had a communication open with that person, that you could know when it was becoming a problem, you could have created a solution together. So that is, I forgot, the review and revise. You do have to make it a consistent part of your review process with your employees with flexibility, what the problem would be for you if you have a difficulty, but don't wait until the review date, okay? So let's say you have an employee and you're like, well, we're all set to review in 2 months, but I have a difficulty today with this. You can talk about it now, and don't wait to the review period, okay? And with that, I hope I've answered your questions. What is work-life flexibility? Why is it important? Who is in charge? And how do you do it? And my hope is that while we no longer recoil from the concept of telework and flexible work arrangements and work-life, we now can begin the work to really figure out how to make it a success for organizations and individuals, because it is not going away. It is only going to become more important and a more critical piece of the way we run our organizations and the way we run our own lives. So I welcome you in the conversation, and thank you very much. I will answer questions for the next 10 minutes. Thank you. Questions. How does an individual handle flexibility when they work in an organization that does not support it? What do they do, right? So let me first make an observation. Where are you now? What are you doing now?
Right now?
Yeah.
I'm in business.
Okay, so you're not there anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting, right? He has quit. So I'm telling you, that is what is going to happen when organizations do not support it. People will quit. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. I always find that fascinating when people ask me this question. It usually is about their former employer that they have now left. Anyway, all right, so what do you do? Well, it depends on where you are in the organization. I'm assuming you had some level of management responsibility. Okay. Did you present all the whys to the organization? Did you present some of the amazing, if I can say, amazing research that's out there about all the benefits to the business? Did you present all that? As the thorough Columbia Business School student that you are now, I'm assuming you did.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Do that first. Then offer a pilot. You know, pilots are a beautiful thing. Pilots make everybody feel like there's a ripcord, okay? Like the whole thing, we put it in place and everything just implodes around us. We can just say, okay, that was funny. We're not doing it anymore. Forget it. Let's all go back to the way it was. Now that is not going to happen. But you can say, hey, you know what? Let's just try it. Like, let's just put like a small thing in place where, you know, 3 people get to say that they want to work a little bit flexibly for the next 3 months. And let's just see how it goes. Let's just, as a kooky thing that we do, let's just see how it goes and keep track. And then go to your boss and say, hey, it was all great. Actually, blah, blah, blah got done. Or actually, we had more coverage for XYZ deal because we were all working flexibly. You know, come up with some measures that you want to try to achieve from that and then kind of expand it from there. I find that the power of the pilot is a very underutilized strategy. And at the end of the day, if they still don't get it, and I'm thinking wherever you go next, you're probably going to try again, right? The statement would be that there were people who just didn't get it, okay? Senior leaders, perhaps a little older, which we're going to talk about in a second. And the concern is if I do it for you, then I give it to everybody, blah, blah, blah. This is actually an actual fear that has a name, okay? That's how prominent it is. It's called the floodgates fear, and here's how it goes. I give it to you, then all of a sudden, everybody's gonna want it, and you know what they're afraid of? Is they're gonna walk in one day and the whole place is empty. And it's like tumbleweeds are going through and it's just like I have this image of this, like 1,000 phones on a desk, and they're just randomly running to pick up all the phones because everybody's gone, right? It's literally where they go. So you have to have compassion in that it's a valid fear, but the truth of the matter is most people most of the time don't really want to do a whole lot, okay? Most people don't want a big change in how they work. They just want a really small shift. So, you know, you have to meet that manager where he or she is. They don't get it. They are genuinely afraid. I think part of the problem is there's a very big difference between a policy and a culture change, and this is, again, a whole other conversation. But I've actually, some of the biggest champions in companies that I've worked with have been in their 60s. So don't know if it's always age, as much as it is an awareness that the world has changed, and you have to change with it. And I go back to try to find it's there, whether you know it or not, or whether anybody's talking about it. Honestly, there is somebody already doing flexibility in their teams. They're just not calling it flexibility. They're calling it, I'm getting the job done, and they don't realize it's flexibility that they're doing. Find that person, get them to become a champion, partner with them, create a business case, how it's been successful, show them that afraid manager that you didn't have everybody disappear, that you did coordinate, everything was actually better with it. You know, it just takes bringing people along because it is a big change. And I just don't think people get it. I don't think they really understand how dramatic and transformational the reality around work and life has been over the last 20 years. And to keep trying to use a management mindset that you'd used in 1975 is absolutely not going to work. I mean, it's just not. I just don't think it's even a culture we understand how radical this has been. We're still wrapping our brains around it. So we need really thoughtful, great, aware people like you who can go in, articulate what's happened and how we can begin to comfortably change workplaces. So it's a win-win. But we as individuals play a role in that. It's not just about our managers. And if we're screwing it up where we are all taking off and not getting the job done, then we're just as much to blame. So we have to be partners with our organizations. Are there resources for people who are managing a work-life fit that would include work, life, and art at the same time? You know, I think it really is about what do you want and creating that vision for yourself. What I hear there are definitions of success out in the culture that are making you feel there's like a right way to do it. And, you know, those definitions of success are also brutal. Okay, they're brutal because they define how you're supposed to do something in a way that may not be valid for you. And so in the art world, it obviously sounds like, you know, there's a definition of success that might not be compatible with the work-life fit you're trying to achieve, and maybe in the work world, there isn't one either. So, you know, part of this whole new way of working and living is creating new definitions of success for ourselves. Those old definitions of success don't actually even work either anymore. I'm telling you, it's a crazy transformation. That's all that still is not, you know, completed. So, you know, find like-minded people like you, 2, 3 people like yourself who are trying to do that, and, you know, work together with them and just, you know, keep managing it day to day. But I'm going to think, you're going to give me your email, and I'll think of anybody that I can come across who's actually addressed this from the art perspective. Okay? That's it, guys. Okay, my book is back there. I will be happy to sign it, and thank you very much. I'm happy to stick around for a little while longer as well. So.